as we continue our Work in Progress series. Today we will review error handling. Again, 2 years ago, when I first began working in Flutter, I was looking for a framework that addressed a number of things. One particular one was error handling. As it happens, the solutions offered at the time did not have an innate process for handling errors. One thing that we developers are guilty of is not anticipating errors. We think we can make our apps without making any errors. That's of course a human trait. In business, you are to get the project working right. Let's not have errors. Let's get it done right. In the real world, programs encounter errors. So there's two things that we tend to neglect: documentation and error handling. So we were wanting for a solution that provided extensive options when it comes to error handling. So again, the NBC framework does just that. In continuation with our working memory demo app, I've decided to put in a bug. I've decided to actually blow this program up. One of the most common errors is when the no such method error is triggered. When an object normally instantiated is actually null, and you call an instant member of it, whether that be a property, in other words a field, or a method. So the method, for example, in this demonstration is going to be the one where we set this to dark mode. So right now we have it in light mode. Instant I hit dark mode, it's going to blow up. Now let's see if I can find right here and now settings. I want to show you what I did. In fact, really rather simple. I just changed it to null. Under settings, when you set it to dark mode, here we are. You could see at a glance what I've simply done was call this on null. I put in there. Of course, again, we don't document it. Programs tend to forget that. When this fires, it's going to go boom. Try it. Boom. Now we're going to walk through. I'm going to give you appreciation of how the Flutter framework itself handles errors. We're going to be introduced to its error handler. Eventually I'm going to show you yet another video on its widget error handler when a widget fails to fire, and how you report errors. Right here and now, let's do a quick demonstration. So this is going to error. I'm going to step through it. So now, this is what happened. Take advantage of this IDE. This program was invoked. Invoke the onTap method. It does so right here. Callback. You notice it's in a try-catch structure. That is where you'll find how the Flutter framework catches errors. It puts try-catch in specific areas where it's likely to encounter an error, and that's it. If there is an error, then the Flutter error static method report error is called, but not before the details is generated. So again, an attempt was made here, a callback was called, it failed. Let's see what the exception is. Again, no such method error. The method set dark mode was called on null. You'll encounter such things all the time. So know that if you tap on something, this stretch of code is being called. So now what we do here, I'm just going to simply walk through it. I'm not going to step through it. I'm just going to hit resume. And I have breakpoints in certain areas. Here, again, every time you have an error, the Flutter error details is generated. And now this is deep in the Flutter framework. If you can see here, it's under Foundations, under Asserts library file, the Assertions library file. And we see that because there's an error handler, it's not null, it's passing the details now to that error handler. Step through it, and there is the error handler. For demonstration purposes, I've simply overridden the method. I wanted you to get appreciation that the MVC framework now takes over. I want to give the users, developers using this MVC framework, every opportunity to handle their errors. By default, I'm not. This is just going to produce the general behavior that you've discovered yourself. Note, it won't present you with the on-screen, the red screen of death. So we're going to just, at a glance, you'll realize that every state object, when you use this MVC framework, has error handling built right in. Right now we're using the state widget state object. What's that? That's this. That's this very interface right here with all the settings. It has its own error routine. You're free to customize it to make it your own, or you let it fall through. That's what we're going to do here, by the way. We're going to let it fall through all the way back to the app level of this framework. The app level has error handling. You don't have to worry about it. But more importantly, you can worry about it if you want. You can implement your own. I've made this framework so that it can be utilized by large developing teams, segregated to effectively utilize staff and generate individual screens. Well, maybe they all have to have their own error routine. I don't know what they want, but I know you need a means to handle your errors. Simple as that. Go in there. At this point, you've got to customize it yourself if you want. This is, again, the settings state object. Just through it. And we'll go to the next one. Now we're in the next error handler. Where's this? Well, this is the state object that's displaying your items right then and there. The screen underneath. See, again, it's falling back. It too has its own means of handling errors. We've chosen not to. We're going to have it fall through. But you can, if you wish. Every state object in this framework has its own error routine. Supply an error handler routine to fire when an error occurs. So you can define your own with each controller and with each, further still, with each state object. So let's do this. Let's go to date object. Okay, let's go. Alright, here we are. Every time you instantiate a state object, it records the current error handler right then and there, allowing you to present your own. And we do. It defines your own error handler. You can use the current one, whatever that is, but you're free to, when you extend and make a subclass of this class, you're free to put in your own error handling. That's huge. Got to implement this. Couldn't understand why there was no framework that does such a fundamental responsibility. You're going to have errors. You're going to have errors. Handle them. So, let's fall back further. Now where are we? Now, we've fallen back to this error handler. Where's this? Well, this is in the app state. Remember, in previous videos, we have the app state. There you actually define the view of your application. You specify the home screen, for example, as well as a number of other attributes you're free to assign. They usually go to the Cupertino app or to the Material app widget. Find the look and feel of your application. Well, guess what? You can also define and override your customized error routine. Put that in there. Now what's that? How many options is that now? 1, 2, 3. We're up to 3 options, 3 places where you can have your own error routine. It's continuing to fall back. Now we're back all the way back to... Okay, so we're at the state object, and in that state object, you noticed there was an app controller. Again, in MVC design pattern, it is the controller that responds to system events, to user events, and in this case, to error events. So because this app state has a controller, I'm going to run it. And of course I put a breakpoint there. So what's that? 4 levels. So in this demo app, we have a class called Working Controller. It's extended the app controller. It's assigned as the controller, the app controller for this app state. And so now this is again another option. This controller, you're free now to customize that. 4 places so far. Don't need to, but you should somewhere along the line. Go in there. And finally, in this routine, again, you're free to override it. But if you don't, it goes to the app level routine. What the heck is that, you say? App level has its own arrow handler. And if it does, it'll fire. Otherwise, it'll perform the Flutter framework's default routine, which is to dump the error into your console. So let's go into this error handler. What does this do? So now that we're in the error handler itself, obviously define a handler, as they call it. This stretch root code here, for example, is used to prevent infinite loops in case your error handler itself has an error. But we'll go beyond that. We'll go right here. Step into there, and look at that. I define Crash Linux. Third-party option. Where was this defined, you say? So I've been calling in the main routine. I decided to introduce a third-party crash routine. Everyone should be familiar with this product, Firebases. Google certainly does promote it. I've actually assigned it to this app. So, the stateful widget, created here. This run app, if you can guess already, is not the one that you're familiar with. This one contains additional name parameters. Look at this. I'm defining its own handler. I'll go in here. This run app method is part of the MVC framework. You don't have to use it, but if you do, you have this option now. So I'm literally concerned with error handling right at the beginning, right at the hop. You'll be familiar with the approach taken here. This is actually found also in the very popular Capture Dart package, used by many as its error handling. So it's defining this app handler. This is part of the MVC framework, and it takes in the error handler right away. So this MVC framework handles isolate errors, errors in the zone itself. Here is the Flutter's framework run app method. It's wrapped in a guarded zone so that if it itself has errors, the error handler will handle it, I should say. As you can see, the emphasis is handling your errors. You can run through that. Let's just simply run through this. And finally, at the end, so it's actually, this product here is reported the error, as it should, on your Firebase, and finally dumps it, as Flutter framework itself would, dumps it to the console. Right, so let's close that. Let's continue on. So if I go into my debugger console, sure enough, there's the error right there. You can have the error sent to your developers at headquarters, an email, request an email be sent. It can be logged in a database, who knows? Simply greeting your user a cryptic message on the screen is not enough. You would have a human-friendly message displayed telling them that someone's been notified of the error. You have that option. Let's try that again. Now if I close this, open it up again. Oh, yeah, I'm still in bugger. And look at this. I've just closed that screen with all the settings. Here you reveal it's a little secret. Every closure, when that screen's closed, that state object is terminated. Not before, however, returning the original error routine, if any. Cleans up after itself. This is part of the dispose routine in that state object. As you can see, it's extensive. It actually calls and disposes all its controllers as well. Again, that's a whole new series of videos. The MVC framework looks at the state object as the view, more particularly its build function as the view, the user interface, while the controller responds to system and user events. I've done nothing. Google Teams presented us with a beautiful tool allowing us to make multiple platform solutions with one code base. I'm just taking advantage of the fact that MVC design pattern has been around for a long time and it seems well suited for this tool. Again, that state object is closed. And the error routine, whichever error routine was defined in that particular state object, is now returned to the original one. Oh, look at that. Getting out of there. Good. So, if I hit this button again, that makes sense because again I'm turning off dark mode. As you can see, it failed completely. It wasn't even in dark mode. Hit it again. This will error. Produce the error. Call a Flutter error handler, which happens to be the state object itself. You go through the MVC state object. You go all the way back to the app level, and it calls its appropriate handler. In this case, the handler was conceived right at the beginning in the MVC framework's run app method. Okay, we'll leave it at that. I gotta fix that error now.